few of you guys what you think art is. So, what do you think art is?
It's how you express yourself, but like in your own way. So art may be different for someone else, but for you, it's a certain, like what you have in mind. I don't know how to explain it. Sorry.
And for you?
Anything that helps you unleash your creativity.
Okay. And for you?
It's a way of expressing your feelings.
Yeah. Well, the Oxford Dictionary defines art as the expression or application of creative skill, as you guys said, and imagination, and applying it to either visual or musical, any kind of work form. And it's mainly appreciated for its beauty or emotional power on ourselves or someone else. So I'm not going to talk about today what you guys typically think of art, which is paintings or murals or even music. I'm going to talk about my favorite art form, which is cinema, which I've talked about several times before. Cinema is an art form to me because it's not only replicating life and giving ourselves and other individuals the illusion of something that's going on when it really isn't, when it's completely choreographed and it's completely planned, from the lighting to the sound to absolutely everything that we see on our TV or on a projector. It's completely choreographed, and that's why I think it's so beautiful. Okay. So what makes cinema beautiful to me and to many individuals who consider themselves cinephiles or just big movie buffs is that it does take a lot of work. When you choreograph a movie, you have to think about your castings, you have to think about how much money is going to go into it, you have to think about where you want it set, how you want to make people feel. And so it's not as simple as grabbing a camera and filming an event and selling it to a studio and then projecting it on an AMC projector. It's so much more than that. Okay, so I talked about what cinema is. Now I'm going to talk about what 35mm projection is and what digital projection is. And I'm going to talk about what we can do as individuals to keep cinema true to itself, which is being projected on 35mm. So 35mm is 24 frames on film reels projected per second, and this is beautiful because it's complete illusion. As even when not only when filming but when also projecting it, it's like it's not even a real motion picture. You're just spinning it in front of a light bulb, and it's giving off the illusion that you're seeing something happen. You're seeing romance happen. You're seeing fighting happen. You're seeing action. You're seeing everything, and it's all an illusion. They're all just individual stills. So when you look at a projector that's being projected with 35mm, it's hypnotic and it's beautiful, and it really is magic. It really is. Okay, and like I mentioned, in filmmaking, every minute counts when you shoot on 35mm. You can't make several cuts, so the actors have to be perfectly on point every time because they know that every second is money being burned, which means that everybody is bringing out their best foot forward when they're making the film and giving us as an audience the best version of anything that we can see. Okay, so how many of you guys have seen this movie, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones? Okay, this movie is actually what marked the shift from 35mm to digital projection. This is the first movie that started screening in AMCs and Edwards and even local art houses on digital projection, which means that it wasn't shot on an actual film camera. It was shot on a digital camera, which means it's just pixelated images, basically. It's not actually capturing an image. It's a copy of an image, which is what digital projection is. And this is, when this movie came out, everybody was in awe of it because they thought about how cheap it was to produce it, how cheap it was to get it into theaters. And this is one of the first biggest blockbusters that we know ourselves. It was easy it was easy to mass produce, and it was easy for everyone to go to the movies and see it. Okay, so because of that, why isn't 35 millimeter screened everywhere? Why, when you guys go to AMC's, you're not seeing movies on 35 anymore if it's so great, if it's so magical? And the reason is it's because it's really expensive. It's expensive to distribute, and it's expensive to even play, which means that somebody who is actually running the reel behind the wall for the projection needs to actually be skilled and taught, and they need several years of practice to be able to play a movie. Not just hiring any teenager that's attending high school that needs a part-time job that can press play on a projector, which means that you would have to pay them more, so it's just money. So why not digital? In an interview in 2012, Aim Berg for LA Weekly stated that Paramount Pictures stopped distributing 35 millimeter film even though they had it in their vaults, which meant that theaters had no other option but to project on DCP, which is digital projection. So they couldn't show their audiences 35 millimeter because there were no 35 millimeter reels going around. Everything was digital, which means it was just this giant monopoly. You can't have your way. If you want to see movies how you want to see them, you weren't able to because Paramount Pictures stopped this. And not only that, like I mentioned before, in filmmaking, because it's so easy, anybody can just go ahead and grab a camera and film someone, grab your iPhone, film someone. It's just not as good quality as you can get when you're shooting on 35 or when you're actually being true to the art. Okay, so all in all, I talked about what cinema is. I talked about why I'm credible to speak of this, and it's because I've seen movies on 35 millimeter and because I love it so much. And I talked about why it relates to you because you've been going to the movies probably for several years of your life, and I'm sure that you've noticed a change, even though it might be subconscious. And I talked about why it's important to support your local art houses, which are little theaters that actually still fight to show in 35 millimeter, despite the fact that giant studios aren't even distributing to them. It's pure love, pure from their collection, and it's wonderful. So I will leave you guys with this. Just support your local art houses. You guys are blessed enough to live in LA, as opposed to different cities like Detroit or somewhere in the middle of the country where they don't have this wonderful thing going on, where there's still little theaters that screen in 35. You don't have to go to AMC's, you don't have to go to Edwards, you don't have to support these big companies. If you love movies and if you want an experience, go to your local art houses and see a movie on 35.